There we go. All right, so let's create our roof. All right, so I'm going to come over here to my roof level, right? Hello. It's okay. And we're going to go over here to, I'm going to have an east elevation open here. And I just want to look at things, remember where all of my levels are, right? We do have roof. Oh, you've come to work today, huh? That's good. Garrett's going to try and convince you to use a laser cutter for that.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. We have our roof level, we have our top of wall, we have our level 2, bottom of structure, and main level. Okay. So ideally, you know, we have this roof level here, and when I open that up, I click, or it's not working, click, there we go. You know, I don't see anything. I do see the walls below, you know, the architecture, which is great, but I don't see a roof. Obviously, we don't have one. Okay. Top of wall, I get a similar view, right? There's my view. Okay. I'm going to WT, and I'm going to look at, uh-oh, Jameson's cleaning up. Over there, banging around. I'm going to look at my elevation over here at the same time that I'm going to go into a floor plan over here, actually, and create my roof. Okay, so I'm going to go into, I think I'm going to not go to roof. Remember, when I created my roof and it was on the roof level, the roof started here and grew up, and I don't want it there. I actually want it on my top of wall. And so I'm going to go to my, ooh, I don't have a top, I should have a top of wall. Maybe it's named something else. Let's see, top of upper wall. Huh. I must have deleted my floor plan over here. Huh. But I can still access it. Tricky. Well, anyway, hopefully you guys haven't done that, right? I've deleted something, probably showing you guys something and don't remember. But you will want to create your roof on your upper wall. Okay. So I'm here, and I'm going to go to the architecture tab, and I'm going to come over here to roof, right? Roof by footprint. Now, one interesting thing, this is something you may or may not have run into with Revit, right? I didn't click over here into my roof plan, or my, I guess, top of floor plan, before I exited, let me show you what I did. I'm still clicked, and this window's still engaged, right? And I clicked on the roof tool. And when I did that, it said, hey, wait a minute, you're in a view still that you can't draw a roof plan in, right? This doesn't happen with every tool, but in sketchy type situations, usually it does. It says, hey, you can't draw your view here. Why don't you go to a view where you can draw it, right? Like a floor plan. And so this menu lists all of the different types of floor plans we have in here where you could or are allowed to draw those, the roof plan. So I look here and I think, well, I have two roof plans too. Roof and roof. Oh, I wonder if I renamed one. No? Well, there's anyway. So I'm going to choose roof. And I'm gonna draw my roof now, right? So now Revit understands, okay, great, you're in a floor plan view and you can draw your roof here, okay? So I'm gonna click on my, I have my boundary line here selected, and I'm gonna click on, I can click on my line. I could use a pick tool. I could use the walls, right, to draw my roof boundary if I wanted to. If I wanted to draw right at the edge of all of these walls, right, I could just click and start drawing. Great. If I wanted to have an overhang, I would need to remember that I have an offset option over here. You know, let's do 4 foot, enter, okay? So now anything that I draw, like if I use the pick line, right, I get a 4 foot offset. So click, click, it's magical, right, click, click. And it's fairly clean, but it, you know, some things didn't quite join together and, you know, it's not quite there, but it got me most of the way. So I'm gonna trim, TR, click, click, and the command just continues, click, 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 okay? So I've established my boundary of my roof with my eave line, right? I've got the overhang built into that. I want you to remember that if I select one of these, I get a slope indicator happening here. So this right now is a 912 slope. It's a pretty steep slope, right? So I don't necessarily think that I want that steep of a slope. So I'm going to change that. And I can choose to change this singly, or I can hover over that line. I'm not clicking, I'm just hovering. It highlights blue. Tab once, click, and establish that selection. Okay, so I selected them all at the same time. I can come over here to slope and I could type, 5, enter. And I get a 512 slope associated with all of these. If I hit finish, look, there's my roof. So that's really odd. Sorry, let me just, I'm going to go back real quick. I must have deleted that level because I can still choose top of upper wall, and top of upper wall shows here. And it's blue, right, which means that there should be a level associated with it as opposed to a black one, which I shouldn't have a level. Anyway, it went in the right spot. That's all I'm worried about. So I have my roof, right? And because every single one of these lines sloped, it all sloped up to kind of a pyramid shape, like a hip, right? A hipped roof, okay? I'm going to click on that roof and I can click on Edit Footprint. If I want to change the slope, right, of some of the areas, I can select that area and I can change it from 512 to a lower slope or whatever. But I can also undefine the slope, right? So I can click on Undefine. I could click on this one and choose Undefine, right? Undefined means that it's going to have a gable end there. It won't slope, right? It'll have a gable end. Or if you choose all of them to not have a defined slope, then you'll have a flat roof, okay? So I hit finish, and now when I look in 3D, goofy little roof, huh? I have, these are gable ends, okay? So, we know how to do that. You're probably getting used to doing that, right? If not, you'll work on the assignment and you'll get used to it. One odd thing about this is that, this roof does slope up, right? We have a gap in between the wall and the roof, right? We don't really want to take this wall and maybe extend the top constraint up to like the roof, right? Because if we do that, it comes up square. And although it does kind of fill that area, it doesn't trim off those weird excess pieces, okay? I'm gonna hit undo. And so in order for me to have this come up and join the roof, I'm going to attach it to the roof, all right? And an attachment, it doesn't alter the base and the top constraint. It just says, hey, there's another object up here. If that object stays there, this object is going to reach up and touch it and form the same, underlying the shape of it. So it's going to, snug up underneath there. If this happens to go away or it changes, this object that's attached to it will also change with it. Okay. So I can click on this wall. I can choose Attach Top Base. Click. Click on the roof. Click, and it attaches the top of this to the roof. Okay. Now if I click on the roof and I change the slope, right, it follows that. Okay. And I can do that with all of the walls. The roof is always going to generally always slope a little bit, right? So the walls will always have to come up and meet it. So if I hover, tab once, click, establish the selection set, and then I choose Attach Top to Base, click, click, and then it attaches up there. Okay. All right, so we have our roof. This is called a roof by footprint, which means that I drew it in plan view, right? I just want to clarify that real quick. Before we move on to a different type of roof, we're going to look at roof by extrusion as well. I want to show you how you can create openings in roofs and how you can join roofs together, okay? Roofs don't always just, you don't have just a lot of times a singular roof in a project. A lot of times you have more than one. Yep.
I wasn't here last time, but did you explain how to do overbuilds?
So it'll be kind of the same thing as what we're going to do now. So if you have one roof kind of resting on top of another, right? Like you have an existing roof and you're adding a roof to the back and you have to build on top, right? That's what you're talking about. Yeah, it's kind of the same topic. Yeah. Okay, so let's draw another roof on top of this. Okay, so we come up here to roof by footprint. And actually, you know what? Hold on, I've changed my mind about something. I'm going to click on this roof. I'm going to hit edit footprint. And I'm going to get rid of this little jog right here, just for the sake of today. Okay. TR, trim, click, click. There's our roof for now. Finish. So now we just have a gable end roof, right? Kind of just looks like that. Okay. So I'm going to create another little piece of roof that kind of, you know, comes a dormerish type of piece of roof that comes out over the top of this architecture right here. Okay, so I come up here to architecture, I go to roof by footprint, and I'm going to draw the boundary of my roof. So I'm just gonna, and I'm gonna keep it right on the walls for now. All right, so I want this to be a gable. I don't want that to slope. I want this to slope up, that to slope up, and to create, you know, little dormerish area. I'm going to bring this out to there. All right, so we're going to click on this. We're going to undefine the slope. Click on this, undefine the slope. This will be, we'll change this to a, well, we type 5, enter, 512. Click on that. Right, I could also come up here and change it, but I'm going to type 5, enter. I'm going to hit finish, and I have a little, ooh, a little guy. Let's bring the slope of this big roof down. What was the slope of this one? 512. Okay. Sorry guys, let me just, 112. I've messed everything up. Okay, it's a little bit weird, right? Maybe we'll take this slope and make it more apparent, like an 812. It's a pretty steep little roof. Okay, so we have a little kind of gable end there, a little dormer type thing. Okay, and I have a roof here, but they don't look right, you know. This, I guess, you know, this needs to kind of, this would sit on top of the roof, right? It would be framed and sit on top of the roof, and these little pieces wouldn't be happening. And if we were to look at this in terms of inside the space, you know, I click on section box, and if I were to look inside the space, there we go, right? The roof is really coming in and intersecting inside of the space, right? Which is not what we want to see happen, okay? Modeling in Revit doesn't always have to be perfect, right? So there are instances where maybe if, you know, something like this happened, it wouldn't be a gigantic deal because you might not see it, right? So if they overlapped and you didn't see it, then it's maybe not a big deal. But, you know, I think roofs specifically, you do see the inside of the space a lot, whether it's an elevation or a section or something to that effect. So we want to make sure that they come together and join very nicely, okay? Which means that we are going to, we're going to cut a hole in our roof, okay? So that these two roofs join very nicely, right? Okay. Sorry, let me, I'm debating on if I should change the shape of this a little bit because I want it to, I guess that's a little bit more evident. Okay. And let me just change the shape of this roof just a tiny bit so we can see it a little better. I'm going to bring this out just a little bit. You know, it's kind of weird, but okay. So essentially our first task is what we want to do is we want to cut a hole in this big roof so that this eave is not passing through here, right? And so that this roof we can create a little hole for this roof to kind of sit on top of the main roof. And then later on we'll join them together so that these pieces back here that are not supposed to be there will go away. Okay, so step one, you know, I've created my roofs. They intersect. It doesn't look really great. Okay, step two, we're going to cut a hole in this main roof so that it will accommodate this secondary roof. Step three, we're going to join the two roofs together, and that will get rid of all of this extra, you know, this extra extrusion back here on this roof. Okay. All right, so first things first. All right, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how to cut a hole in this big roof, but I also want to talk about some of the methods that I use to do it so that graphically it makes it a little bit easier for me to, you know, visualize. Okay. When I'm working with something like this, I like to use reference planes to kind of mark where I need to cut the object. Okay, if you remember a reference plane, it's like a construction line. It's a line marker that doesn't print, right? So I can use them all over the place to help create geometry in Revit, and then they don't print, essentially. Okay, so if I go to architecture and I go all the way down here to reference plane, I can click on that, or I can just click or type on the keyboard RP, reference plane, and I'm going to click on the pick. And what I want to do here is I want to, ooh, it's not going to pick it for me. What I want to do is I want to define kind of where this roof ends and comes up and create that peak is created right there. And I don't know if I got it very well. It's not giving me the greatest. There we go. It's not giving me the greatest. There we go. Close enough. It's slightly off, but, well, no, I don't want it to be slightly off. Let's see if we can get a view that maybe makes it. This roof I've drawn here is not making my job easy. Realistic. That doesn't help, does it? Did I delete that little piece of roof? Oh, jeez. There we go. There it is. I'm trying to find a visual style that will help me view it a little bit better, but I'm not being very successful. So let's just see. Shaded. That helps. Okay. So my intent was to kind of be able to view these valleys right here, right? So RP, reference plane, and I'm going to come up here and try and snap where it intersects, and then snap where it ends. Okay, looks good. Looks good, and then it kind of goes like that. Okay, and I'm going to go back to hidden line, HL. All right, so essentially what I want to do is I want to cut a hole in this big roof, and I'm going to use these reference planes to kind of guide me where I want that hole to be. All right, I'm going to hide this little piece of roof. I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to use my sunglasses to hide it. And now you can maybe see why I put these reference planes here, because if I had hidden it, I wouldn't know where, you know, those lines were if I hadn't marked them. So I use reference planes to kind of mark them, okay? And now what I want to do is I want to create a hole in this roof, okay? And so I am going to cut it, okay? And I'm going to get a prompt down here that says select the element to be cut. Okay, so I click it, and it says, you know what, hold on a second, that's not true. Didn't feel right when I chose it. I want to hold on a second, let's see. Here we go. This is what we want. Sorry, I don't know why I totally just blanked on which tool to use. Like, that's not right. We want to cut a vertical opening. Here's what we want to do, okay? So I'm going to go back to architecture, and I'm going to come over here to vertical, and I'm going to click on that. And I'm going to get a prompt down here that says, select a floor, roof, ceiling, or a soffit to create a vertical opening in. I want to click on my roof, and then I pop into sketch mode. All right, and now I just need to sketch the the opening essentially that I want to cut. Okay, so I'm going to use all of my same sketch tools, and I'm going to start here at the edge. Click, 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 and I essentially, you know, I'm grabbing all the pieces in the roof that I want to disappear, you know, and I'm closing that in a region. So everything else is going to stay the same, and I'm going to hit finish. Okay. It is under architecture, and it's vertical opening. Yep. Okay. So I've just cut a little opening there, right? So if I go into 3D, it looks pretty darn good, right? Let me turn my section region off here. There we go. Okay, fits nice. I've solved one problem, right, which is there was an eave running through my gable right there, which is something I didn't want. Okay. So I've cut that opening. You know, I'm going to take a little side trip here, and I'm going to just cut an opening in the roof so you can see what they look like with it not being for a specific purpose. I'm going to click on vertical opening again, and we're going to click on the roof, and then I'm just going to draw a rectangle and hit finish. Right, so there's another vertical opening right there. That's what it looks like, right? So, you know, you could mistake this for something like a shaft opening, right? But it's not. Now, it is similar to a shaft opening in that the opening is considered an object and the opening is a void, right? So any of you that have used AutoCAD in 3D, when you model in 3D in AutoCAD, and in Revit actually, you can create solid geometry and you can create void geometry, right? And so by doing what I just did, I didn't actually cut away the roof so that it's gone forever, you know, I created a voided opening in that roof, okay? And I want to kind of say that because I can, you see how if I hover near the boundary, I get that roof opening selection, right? And I can also get, if I tab, I can select the roof, right? If I select the roof opening, like if I make a mistake, click, I can hit delete and it goes away, okay? So I'm not cutting a piece away that goes away forever. So this does kind of function like a shaft opening in that it's an object and I can delete it. It's not as easily manipulated as a shaft opening, but it kind of functions like one. All right, so I have my roof opening here, okay? And the next thing I want to do is I want to get rid of all of this stuff back here that I don't need, right? And I'm going to do that, I am going to join these two roofs together, okay? And the way I'm going to do that, is I'm going to go to Modify, and I'm going to come over here to Join/Unjoin Roof, okay? So if a roof doesn't, as you can see with our little illustration, if a roof doesn't quite reach, you can extend it, and if they're touching, they will join together. So I click on Join. I'm going to click on an edge of one roof I want to join, this is kind of an odd selection. It doesn't feel quite right to me, but it works. Click, and then I want to select the face of another roof that I wanted to join it to. I'm going to have to change to, oh shoot, I have to change to a wireframe to get the inside face here. You know, let me do something else real quick. Hold on one second. I think my little roof system here is being finicky a tiny bit. Hold on. Okay. Let's see. I think maybe I have a better tool for this. Here we go. No. There we go. There it is. Okay, we're gonna have to go a different route. That's what happens when I go on the fly sometimes with my roofs and I just make them up. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna take my roof and I'm gonna edit this roof a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna go back up to my roof level, and I'm going to, my roof has been hidden, right, because I was creating the opening here. All right, so I'm gonna click on reset. I'm gonna reset that, and instead of having my roof go all the way back to this plane, right, and intersect it, I'm going to alter it, and I'm going to make it shorter. I think we'll be able to select a little bit easier with it being a little shorter. Okay, and the reason that I feel like this is going to work a little better is because I have an edge here. You see how I can see the back side edge of that roof, and then I can see the inside edge of this roof opening, right? If I had it the other way, it's hard to pick both edges. Ooh, and there's one other thing that might be, I'm getting that error, and there's one other thing that might be causing it, which hopefully this will fix it. If not, we'll go through that. This will be a learning experience for everyone. Okay, sorry guys. Roofs are getting the better of me today. The other thing here that I think might be happening there we go. Hold on. Let's see if this works. Or we might have to pick a different roof type. Join. 1, click, 2, click. There we go. Okay. Sorry. What was happening there is when I cut away, it's been a while since I've joined a roof, obviously. When I cut away the roof parts, okay, here's what happened. I cut away the roof. Let me undo what I just did, and I'll show you exactly what happened. Maybe you guys can kind of see what's happened. But when I created that opening, I created it so that it was exactly the same shape as this roof, right? Where those valleys come in, which means that it's going to cut away that roof so that there's no overlap between the roof plane here and the roof plane there with the thickness of this roof. This roof is 12 inches thick. So I need to cut away the roof, but I have to leave a 12-inch area for the other roof to connect into. Does that kind of make sense? So I have to have the opening for this roof be 12 inches smaller, or yeah, smaller than it actually needs to be, so the 12-inch thickness roof can come in and have an area to join to. That was the problem that I created. So it's good exercise in creating roof openings, right? I'm going to grab my roof opening, which you can click on it and hit edit sketch just like any other thing that you sketch here. And I'm going to use the pick tool. I'm going to offset my sketch 12 inches to the inside. Doot, doot. So now the 12-inch thickness on this roof has that area to connect to. Does that make sense? Anyway, nobody, no. Somewhat, yeah. It's one of those, yeah, anyway. Okay, so I'm going to trim these now. So the opening is slightly smaller. Okay, finish. It's still there, but now I have an area for my roofs to join. Okay, so now I'm going to come up here into my 3D view, and I am going to join these two roofs together. So I click on join roof. It's going to say down here at the bottom, prompt me, select an edge on the roof that you wish to join or unjoin. Click, and click an edge on the roof you want to join to it. Click, and they join together. Okay, and I will join this attach top to base. I will attach that wall to that roof. We've got a little bit of funniness right here. We'll have to take care of that. But in general, this usually works pretty well.
Was the 12 inches based on the thickness of the roof, or is it always 12?
The thickness of the roof. You see how this roof is 12-inch generic? So if it had been 8-inch, you know, you just want to leave an area enough that they can join together. Essentially, it was kind of trying to join to air, right? There was nothing there to join to. Another way that you can choose to join a roof, okay? So let me say this. We use what's called the roof join tool, okay? And that will take two roofs and it will connect them together, right? We also have what's called the join geometry tool, and that will take two items and it will join them together and it will get rid of the excess. So you can use both of these tools to join roofs together. The difference between the two is that, like, this tool, this roof join tool, it'll take this roof and extend it out and make it a nice clean join, right? And this right here will take things that are already existing and are touching and join them together. So it doesn't necessarily extend things together to make them work. It just cleans up what you have there, right? So when I when I took this roof and I pulled it back, that was so that the roof join tool could, you know, essentially do what it does and extend and then join, right? If I had come in here and used roof by footprint, let's do another little roof. And we will undefine that one, and we will undefine that one. We'll make this one, we'll keep the 912, hit finish, go into 3D. If I had that roof, right, and it extended into this existing roof, I could just join the geometry together. Join one piece, two piece, and now those two pieces are joined together, but do you see how it didn't clean it up? That's the difference between the two of these tools. So, and this join geometry tool, it can be used for most anything, right? Roof is one instance where you can use it. It doesn't work that great other than it joins them together, right? But it doesn't clean them up. But maybe in some cases that doesn't really matter. Maybe you don't need to clean it up. Like if this excess was in the attic space and you're never showing the attic space, then you know, you could just join them together and they would join as one piece, would be one piece of geometry, you know, but it wouldn't clean it up. The advantage to this is that it's likely quicker, you know. You don't have to create an opening in the roof to then, you know, join another roof into it to make it nice and neat, right? Let me do one more of these roof openings so that we can, I'll just show you how to do that one more time. Okay, I'm going to go into my roof level. Okay, we'll create another little roof over here opposite. Architecture. I'm going to come over here to roof by footprint. Okay, and I'm going to just draw another one. I try to make weird shapes to accentuate and then they end up backfiring on me, right? There we go, undefined, we'll make it a 912, hit finish, there we go. So I have kind of a similar roof on the opposite side, right? But again, I have these pieces that are moving through there, right? And then I have this piece that extends really far back in. I'm gonna undo what I don't know why I did that again. We'll pull it back out, there we go, finish. Oh, I didn't quite do it either, there we go, okay. All right, so I have my roof and I want to cut a hole in this, the big roof, and I want to join this using the join roof tool to this bigger area. If I were to choose kind of like talk about means and methods, it's likely better to use the join roof tool so that everything is nice and clean, right? Sometimes you want to get in a hurry and don't want to clean things up or, you know, cut holes in roofs because it takes time, and you're anticipating that maybe you're the only one that will be working in the model, right? And you think, well, I'll never cut a section through there, or there will never be an elevation of that area, so it doesn't matter. That always backfires, right? Somebody else gets into your model down the road or whatever, and then they end up having to do the cleanup and let you know about it, right? So I know it's easy to say, but it's probably better just to use the join roof tool in the beginning and clean it up nicely. Okay, so I'm going to cut a hole in this roof first, and I'm going to do that. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my visual style to shaded so I can kind of see where these valleys are occurring, right? So I come in and I'm going to use a reference plane, RP, and I'm going to kind of trace. And you know, you want to get it to the best of your ability. You may not always be able to trace the valleys, as you can kind of see with me. Like I'm getting it very close, right? And I have to extend it past to get it to work, but get it as close as you can. Okay, we'll get this one going. Hopefully we can get it, there we go. This time I'm going to remember that I need to leave a space on the inside, right? So I'm gonna hide this roof with my temporary hide. And I'm gonna use reference planes again, RP. Okay, and I'm gonna offset it 12 inches. Oh, not 12 feet, 1 foot. So I'm drawing a little bless you. Okay, so I have kind of my area that I'm going to cut out of my roof established. Again, this 12 inches is to allow the roof to come in that is 12 inches thick and have kind of a place to adhere to, essentially. Okay, so now I go to architecture, vertical, cut. I pick the roof I want to cut, and I draw my opening. Click, click. I grab that little guy while I'm at it. I grab the edge, TR, trim, click, 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 click. This is probably one of the, now that I'm thinking about it, this is probably one of the more complicated sort of operations in Revit, honestly. Things are actually usually simplified in Revit. This is, I think, a little bit more complicated. Trim, click, 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 click. Did you have a question, Corey?
His view range is off.
Okay, give me a second. Let me finish this, and I don't mean to laugh at you, but view range is always off. It's like LT scale, right? You're like, how do I get it to work? I don't know. Generally, it functions right. Okay, so I've got my opening, I hit finish, and I've got a cut opening in my roof there. I'm gonna show my roof, there it is. I'm gonna go into 3D, right? And I'm going to choose, go to modify, okay, join or unjoin roof. I click a face once, I click a face twice, and they join together. Right? And again, if I were to look at these, right, this one, where's the little roof? This little roof that I joined, do you see how it has all that excess on the inside? And this little roof is in its nice little opening, right? Okay. There we go. It's not perfect, but pretty close. Okay, any questions about roofs and roof openings? Let me see if I can get your view range. Oh yeah, that is your range. Okay, so move your roof up. That's part of it. So click on that. So go to a shaded view. So you may want to pull that back a little bit and show online. But essentially what you're doing, but you're probably going to have to kind of guess, like it goes from there and kind of goes to there. So it doesn't always show it. This is a better view to see it. Although, you know what's probably happening? You have that on the gable side. Is that a gable on this side? Yeah. So that's maybe more. Okay. So if you take this and you turn it and put it right there, it might help. Okay. All right. So So here's our roof, right? And we know how to create the roof. We can cut holes in it. Everybody hopefully understands that roof types are just like floor types and wall types and ceiling types, right? So if I want to change the type of roof I'm using, I can hit this, change it to that, right? And it changes the construction. I can click on this, I can hit edit type, right? Edit, and I can change the structure through here, right? And again, the same rules apply. If you want to create a new roof type, you choose a roof type that is most similar to the roof type you want to create, and then you copy it, you rename it, and then you redefine it so that you can use it. Okay. All right. Residential roofs are the most complicated, funny enough. What I'm doing, a commercial roof is way easier than this. All right, so let's talk about, there's another type of roof I want to show you, and it is called, instead of the roof by footprint, which we've been using, I'm going to show you one more type of roof, and it's roof by extrusion, okay? And this will allow you, this is, I'm going to, I guess, we'll be bold and say it's maybe a little bit more of a commercial type roof, and I say that because it will give you custom shaped roofs, like if you have a curved roof or whatever, right? Wavy roof or something like that. The roof by extrusion will allow you to draw a shape, and then that roof will be extruded behind that shape, a profile that you draw, okay? So I'm gonna go now, a couple things about roof by extrusion. They're not drawn in, generally, unless your roof is vertical. They're not drawn in floor plan view. Okay, so these are a sectional or elevation type draw. You need a profile to draw them, and I think more than that, you just kind of need to see how it works, right? I'm going to change my crop boundary here. My sneaky little trick, right? I don't like to always turn my crop region on, so I go into the hidden view and I alter it, and I just turn that off. Okay, or we can choose do not crop view. I'm gonna do that for now, that might help. Okay, so I'm going to create a roof by extrusion. Now, roofs are actually kind of complicated now that I start talking about them more, right? This is going to bring into play another element, right? We've used reference planes in our views. We know them as sort of construction lines, right? They establish datum points in space, and they're invisible. They don't print, right? But you can use them to sort of help you draw your geometry in Revit, which is great, okay? But reference planes can do other things, right? Like they actually set a plane of reference for you to draw something, right? And the plane can be vertical, it can be horizontal. And let me show you what I mean by that, okay? So we have a floor plane established here. This is a work plane. And this little, I'm on the architecture tab. This is our kind of our work plane area, okay? Right now my work plane is set in my floor plan view. I can click on set, and I can change it to, you know, like level 2. Without getting into a whole lot of explanation on this, this is somewhat like the UCS in AutoCAD. It establishes a point where, or a plane that you can draw things on, right? So right now my plane is established as level 2, and it's horizontal, all right? Now, the way that our roof by extrusion works is that it wants to have a vertical plane to draw on, all right? And so let me show you what I mean by that. Okay, I have my work plane established here. I'm going to turn it off. Okay, I'm going to go into, see the best way to illustrate this. I'm going to go into a floor plan view, all right? And I'm going to say, hey, I want to draw a roof by extrusion. Well, I can click on roof and I can click on extrusion, but it says, hey, you know what? You cannot draw a roof by extrusion in this view. And that's totally opposite from roof by footprint, right? Because roof by only draw a roof in floor plan view, right? And so I click on, you know, to draw a roof just like I normally would, and it says, hey, you can't do it in this view, and it's because we're using an extrusion. But it does say, hey, you know, if you switch your work plane, you can draw it elsewhere, right? And I look here and I say, well, let me look at the names of the work planes that I currently have drawn. Well, I don't have any. Okay, so I'm gonna hit cancel here. This kind of is a stopping block, right? It won't let me draw anything right now. I'm gonna go into an elevation view here, and if I hit roof by extrusion, okay, it still says, hey, even though you're in a sectional view, you kind of have to establish where you're going to start this extrusion, because with my building elevation, there's no sort of data marker as to how far away or how close you are to your project, right? And what I mean by that is, you know, I've got this elevation marker out here, and I kind of have a line that says, hey, I'm a certain distance from the house, right? And I can view it from here, and I can view it from to there, right? But Revit is basically saying, when it asks me to establish a reference plane or a work plane, it says, hey, where in this depth do you want that to start, right? So it's an easy thing to think about, but kind of a pain in the neck to have to establish when you're trying to create it. So I'm in a, I don't want that view. I want to go into my south view. I am in a sectional type view, which is an elevation where I can see the heights of items. So I think, okay, time for me to create my extrusion, my roof by extrusion. And it says, hey, no, you can create it here, but tell me where you want it to start. And you think, well, maybe I'll just pick somewhere that's already established. Well, there's none established. So essentially, I have to establish a work plane where this roof is going to start, okay? And I'm going to do that by going into a floor plan view, and I'm going to click on reference plane or type RP, and I'm going to draw a reference plane where I want that extrusion roof to start. Let me just, before I go any further, I don't think I've ever used roof by extrusion for a project, honestly. Even commercially, I never have. But I do see the use in you knowing how to do it, because, you know, you may run into that one instance where you're like, oh, I don't know how to create this 1 in a million thing, right? So we're going to obviously go over it. Or you put first year CAD drafters on it?
No, they're not going to.
Oh, no, probably not.
No.
Yeah, no, probably not. Or, well, maybe they are, because those are the ones that know, like, the most, you know, kind of, yeah. That's funny. So I'm going to extrusion roof. Okay. All right. So I've established a work plane right there. So reference planes kind of have a dual use in Revit, right? It has kind of the maybe not so important use of, hey, I use them to help me create things or create data points or whatever, right? But it also allows me to create, you know, kind of this work plane for you to create these extrusions from. So, you know, for example, this extrusion roof. Okay. But I don't see anything when I look here, right? It's a little confusing. I don't see anything. But now when I go to create my roof, I can pick a plane, and there's my roof extrusion. Okay, I hit OK, and it says, hey, where would you like it to go? And I'll say, well, let's choose top of upper wall. Okay. And now it says, hey, great, you've established where in space it's going to go. Draw the profile of it, right? So I'm in a sketch mode. I am really very literally just going to draw, we'll do it over here, what I want it to look like. Okay. So that tool that I used was like the spline tool, right? I drew this fancy shape, okay? And it's going to use this roof type to generate it. Now, the difference between a roof like this and a roof like this is that, you know, I've established a work plane where it's going to start, but now Revit needs to know where it's going to stop, So that first reference plane that I created called, you know, roof, extrusion roof or whatever, that's 0.0. The offset, let's see, the end of it, you could say like 15 foot, or maybe not. There we go. 15 foot, or let's do 30 feet. So it's going to start at 0.0, which is that reference plane you established. It's going to go all the way out 30 feet. When you've established those two things, you hit finish, and it creates my roof. Right? And it's a roof. It's an actual roof, right? Which is problematic because you can't really create a ceiling that's shaped like that. And not that I mean you can't, but in Revit, it doesn't. The ceiling tool doesn't have this functionality, right? So you'll have to fake the ceiling in, but then none of the lights will attach to it, right? There's a lot of inherent problems. Not that I'm against something designed like that, but right? We think in terms of how do you produce that? How do you draw that? How do you make it a reality? If I click on this, it's basically an extrusion, right? So in AutoCAD, in Revit, we're using the same terminology. SketchUp, it's an extrusion, right? It's a shape that you make a 3D object, right? And it starts at a certain point and it stops at a certain point. If I go to my main level, or sorry, let's go to roof actually, right? You see that data marker that I established, right? That is called extrusion roof. It starts there and it goes back 30 feet from there, okay? Let me do one more. I'm going to go to my elevation view, or maybe I'm in this view and I say, hey, I want to create a roof by extrusion. Okay. Well, I want to go to roof extrusion plane. Do you see how that highlighted, that work plane? It says, oh yeah. Again, this is similar in AutoCAD to the UCS. Okay. Oh, it actually left me in this view. I thought it might flip me over into the south view. So I could come in here, I could, you know, me and my nemesis arc. There we go, right? And we have an arced roof. There you go, right? You need an arced roof. There you go. Again, right? So I liked how when I created it asked me for the plane and it established that plane. So I can see an outline of that work plane right there. Okay, show my work plane. There's that one. If I had the other one established as I could hit set. Let's choose extrusion roof. Then it sets that as my work plane, right? This work plane idea, until you've actually used it several times or worked in AutoCAD with it, the idea might be a little bit foreign. But it's essentially a way of establishing, you know, kind of a good working plane on an object, right? A good working plane is this direction, right, for this object. A good working plane for a floor plan is flat and horizontal, right? So that's kind of the idea of a work plane. Why do you know, for this work plane, it's vertical. It allowed me to create this extrusion. Work planes that are established also help you place things. Like, you know, if I wanted to place a light on the front of this, the face of this roof, right? If I had the work plane established horizontal, I might not be able to very easily establish objects on the vertical face of this. Anyway, I'm going to stop because it's with that, but you'll get the idea when you start having trouble. I'm just going to say that, right? Yep.
Are work planes attached to the object, like the roof?
Well, work planes they're attached to that reference plane, right? The reference plane, it's not attached to anything. It's kind of the opposite. You create this reference plane and the roof comes up to it, right? But the roof doesn't define the reference plane. The reference plane defines the roof.
So are they together?
No.
Okay.
No.
Can you delete a reference plane?
Yeah. Yeah. So if I am in my floor plan view, main level, right, and I click on this and I hit delete, it goes away. They're not attached. So now I go back into 3D, I still have my roof, right? So that reference plane's gone now. Yep. Very, very, very much like the UCS in AutoCAD. All right. Any questions so far on these roofs? All right, so roofs, let me make sure I didn't miss anything, but I do want to say you are going to have roof hosted items, right? We'll get into components and families pretty soon. But for example, ceilings host lights, right? Lights are families, components that you host onto them. And if you don't create a ceiling, then lights won't host to it, right? So did you just ask me that question? Who asked me about the ceilings? Anyway, about putting gypsum board on the bottom, maybe it was Junior. But if I create a floor, I want to create a ceiling up underneath that floor, even though I could technically define gypsum board on the bottom of my floor, right? The reason I don't do that is because then lights don't recognize a floor as a hostable element, right? They have to have a ceiling. The same thing applies with the roof, right? So you'll have things like vents on a roof. You'll have, well, mainly vents on a roof. What else goes on a roof? Maybe PV panels or, well, some type of equipment, right? What's that?
Solar system.
Yep, exactly. Yep, solar systems. Anything that might kind of host to a roof. If you don't create an actual roof, then it won't host to it, right? So we want to create roofs, we want to create floors, we want to create ceilings. Even if we could combine a few of the elements, right? Like I could probably put gypsum board or wood on the bottom of my roof to show the ceiling below, but I don't do that because then items wouldn't host. Okay. All right. I felt how many of you are construction management students in here? Yeah. Last semester I taught the late night course of Revit, so it was like 8 to 10:20, and it was all construction management students. And I felt really good when like several of them said, now we know why it's so difficult to draw these drawings. Kind of gave me a, you know, like, yeah, see, it is a lot of work. It's not as easy as you think it is. It's kind of funny. And there's a lot of parts and pieces, and it's complicated, and it doesn't always work the way you want to. So anyway, okay, so these are roofs. Let me just make sure I didn't forget anything. Okay. All right, I think we are good, actually. Okay. So I'm not gonna have you create any weird roof extrusions for your assignment. I do want you to create a roof for this project. Do you want me to post an image of what you want the roof to look like? What I want the roof to look like? Okay. So why don't you wait? I will make the assignment due late next week, and today I will make an image of the roof and show you guys what it's supposed to look like and have you copy it. Okay. What I will when I post, you will copy. Yes.